Perfect. Hello and welcome. Thank you guys for joining us on this Wednesday morning. My name is Kevin Roth. I'm the Education and Volunteer Coordinator at the Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania. I believe most of the people here are members, but if you're not, please remember that the Pennypack Trust is a member-based organization. We have 850 acres of nature preserve here in Montgomery County, and we are entirely member-supported. So without our members, we would not exist. And that's pretty much it. Everything you see at the Trust is because of our members. So please consider becoming a member today if you're not already. This program is jointly hosted by the Pennypack Trust, Audubon Birdtown, Pennsylvania, the Wyncote Audubon Society, and Upper Moreland EAC. I am also the program chair for the Wyncote Audubon Society, and Lynnette is here representing the Upper Moreland Environmental Advisory Council. So that is all the partners that made this program possible today. And today we're here. This program is also brought to you by, I'm going to turn off my video now just so everyone can see the PowerPoint entirely. It just makes for a smoother event. 1 second here. Come on. Perfect. We have everybody admitted. Okay. So this presentation was brought to you by the Bird Window Collision Working Group. That's exactly what they are. They're a Bird Window Collision Working Group, and they've come up with this PowerPoint that they've allowed people to share throughout Audubon Society. So thank you for that group for doing all this amazing work. You're going to learn more about their work throughout this presentation. So this program is only being recorded by us because we have direct consent from this group to do so. The Bird Window Collision Working Group is a collaboration between the Acopian Center for Ornithology, Muhlenberg College, Lehigh Valley Audubon Society, Wyncote Audubon Society, and Audubon, Pennsylvania. So thank you to those groups for doing this important work. The goal of today's talk is to introduce you to the issue of bird window collisions, hopefully to impress upon you as to how widespread and disastrous it is, and just how avoidable it can be and things that you can do at home to make sure this doesn't happen. Birds. We all love birds. We were already talking about the red-winged blackbirds coming back to town. Most people like and enjoy birds. Many of us here place a great deal of time and effort and money into attracting birds to our yards specifically. We all have bird feeders. We add plantings for food and cover. Some of us have fountains for water. And all of this is to bring birds into our yard to benefit them and be able to enjoy seeing them. It's also a competition for many people, to get more birds to their yard. And they use eBird and they do the great backyard bird count. And it's just a fun way to get involved, especially for kids. Just please enjoy this cartoon that they had made for this exact presentation. I thought it was pretty funny. And we actually have some historical facts to go along with this slide. The Romans were actually the first people known to have used glass for windows, but Roman glass didn't look the way our windows look today. They were small and thick, and they let light filter through, but they weren't transparent to see through clearly. It would be about 1,000 years before transparent glass windows were used commonly in ordinary homes. So, for example, such windows weren't widely available in England until the early 17th century. Modern plate glass, the current windows we have, weren't first developed until around 1850, but it was not until 1902 that advancements made it mass producible for everybody else. The first documented bird window collision from this plated glass in North America was of a sharp-shinned hawk flying through a greenhouse glass in 1832. So, like it or not, windows are killing our birds, among other things. The number of windows out there is almost beyond calculation. Every single home, office complex, college campus, and every other type of building, they all have windows and they all have the potential to kill birds. Birds are dying everywhere. There are windows, everywhere there are windows, and the numbers add up, one here, one there, but there's millions of homes and businesses across North America. The birds hit glass and they die, and there's glass everywhere. Dr. Clem, he's one of the only researchers that started researching this. He began studying this problem in 1974, and much of what we know today is either directly from his research or based upon it. He was pretty much alone when he started, but clearly now there are many people working on this problem worldwide. His original estimate, published in his doctoral dissertation, was between 100 million and 1 billion birds colliding with glass annually in the United States of America. The low figure of 100 million is equal to the mortality caused by the equivalent of 333 Exxon Valdez oil spills. 333 Exxon Valdez oil spills. That's just an astronomical amount of number, and that's on the low end. That is just the low end, which is scary. So in 2014, using 35 years of additional data and the latest statistical methods, a group of researchers published a paper that moved the low estimate of 100 million up to 365 million bird window collisions annually. So that's each year. Hold on, PowerPoint's not working. There it is. And if everybody could go back on mute here. I think I hear someone off of mute. There we go. Sorry about that. So, like I said, that low estimate of 100 million was moved up to 365 million bird collisions annually. And so the math is simple. The low estimate equals 1 million bird windows collision every day, year after year in the United States. PowerPoint froze again. There we are. So the sobering, but the facts are here and we must face them. Huge numbers to comprehend, but we need to think about just how many buildings are out there and how a bird here and a bird there, well, it all adds up. If you follow the news, you hear about bird deaths from poisoning and wind turbines, electrocution, even oil spills when cars hit them, and many other causes. But only every few years about the horrific mortality of a couple hundred birds flying into a building, usually in bad weather, such as in Philadelphia this past year. A lot of people, that was the first time they heard about bird window collisions because they all died at once. So these news stories are of hundreds and sometimes thousands of bird deaths all at once. But we are talking hundreds of millions when it comes to bird window collisions. So after habitat destruction and maybe perhaps cats, so keep your cats inside. Bird window collisions are the greatest human cause of bird mortality worldwide. So add all the other types of human caused mortality all together, and they do not even come close to the death caused by glass. So birds are dying everywhere there are windows, and it's a proven fact. And this topic is not getting the amount of attention it deserves, clearly. With these huge numbers, and you haven't heard about it. So the problem is lots of dead birds because they simply do not see glass as an obstacle to avoid. Up to 1 billion birds every year in the US alone, they die. And so where are all these bodies? You should be seeing millions and billions of birds just dying everywhere, next to buildings. But so why don't we see truckloads being hauled away and piles of dead birds under our windows? Well, people just don't see it unless it's obvious, like in these photos or when there's mass die-offs. So, why don't we have these piles? Well, we don't have these piles because of, dead birds for a number of reasons, one of which is many animals eat birds, so such as cats and the chipmunk shown here. That chipmunk's eating a goldfinch, and, the cat has a dead bird as well. So other animals like skunks and squirrels and insects, well, they all eat dead birds, so that's why we don't see them piling up. Field studies have shown that even a trained person will not find evidence of a strike, at least half the time. It's not always evident. So another misconception is that birds don't break their necks. Birds have incredibly flexible necks, and hundreds of X-rays have shown that they do not break their neck when they collide with glass, as people assume. They get most of their injuries from concussions and internal injuries that can't be seen. These injuries can take days to kill, and these injuries can take days to kill because they have to stay active and they have to keep getting food, but they can't always get medical attention like a human can if they got into this kind of blunt force trauma. So yeah, no doctors coming to get them unless somebody sees it happen and then they take it to a rehabilitator. But these birds, they need to stay active to survive, so they can't just sit around and feel bad because they got a concussion. So a lot of the times these bird victims, they fly away to die elsewhere, out of sight, out of mind. No, people that do notice a collision see the bird fly away and think, okay, that bird's okay. They flew away. How bad could it be? If they flew into the window, they would have broke their neck, right? But because of the types of injuries documented to occur in the collision, it's thought that many of the birds just do fly away and die later, often out of sight in bushes or ground cover, completely unnoticed, and then they get eaten by everything we talked about before. So, yeah, that's why we don't see them all piling up. So unlike natural predators, the collision with glass kills both the unfit and the fit. So window collisions kill some of the most fit of the population, not just the weak and unfit, risking to weaken the gene pool is what usually happens. The unfit die off and the fit survive. But that's not the case with window collisions. Even if only stunned or slightly injured, any bird window collisions victim, they fall victim to the predators. So it doesn't matter if they're fit or unfit. If they hit a window, they're likely doomed. So most of those window collisions go unnoticed. But so why do these collisions even happen in the first place? Why do birds collide with glass windows? Well, birds simply they do not see glass, and they cannot recognize the concept of buildings that hold glass. Glass poses two major problems. It is either clear, see-through, or it's reflective, and both of these are a problem. If it's see-through, when windows in a building line up with one another, so like in cities and kind of things like that, birds can often see habitat on the far side and try to fly through it. So they're right through your house. If you have two windows that go through the house and they can see nature on the other side, well, they think they can just fly right through it, and they often do so, hitting it with a terrible and fatal force because they did not know it was there. The other kind is the reflected habitat. Without something to give birds a clue not to fly into it, you can see exactly why these reflected habitat can deceive a bird. They think they're flying right into that tree. The window you're seeing here has an Acopian bird savers, which is one of the solutions we're going to talk about later. And also, angling the glass has been shown to be very ineffective unless it's an extreme angle. But it's mostly impractical in most cases and does not work to prevent bird collisions. Another killer of the birds are glass walkways at any level. I don't know of many around here besides maybe at the hospital, the Abington Hospital. Oh, that's the only one I know of, but I know they're around here. But these glass walkways can be particularly lethal to birds. But any kind of glass structure that allows birds to see habitat through it can be lethal, including glass walls, noise barriers, bus shelters, and glass artworks that you see in the city. So some good examples. This image shows both the reflection and see-through effects, which are both lethal to birds. These are good examples of bad. Buildings can contain both reflective and transparent windows. That's why we're showing this. So in this photo, for example, the top pane of glass is reflecting sky and trees, while the lower pane appears transparent, allowing birds to see trees on the other side of the house through the window parallel to it. So it should also be noted that some windows that appear reflective under one set of light conditions may appear transparent under other light conditions. So this photo is another prime example of what birds are trying to get to. So the top shows a reflected habitat, sky and trees, and the bottom shows all plant inside the home, which is habitat. So they try to fly through that window to get to the habitat. It may seem silly to us, but that's exactly what they're trying to do. So it's also not just the size or what kind of window. It is any size. Any size can kill these birds. It doesn't matter how small or big it is. So this photo shows two lethal effects. The top shows a reflected habitat with skies and trees again, and the bottom portion shows habitat. So you see that there. If you can see my my arrow pointing to it, there's that low window on the bottom of their house, and they can fly right through that. And it's also reflective. So that's why they want to go through it, and it's a small space, but that doesn't matter to them because they can fly through any space. So they see that tree and they fly right to it. So, like I said, birds are used to dying to flight spaces, and this is a prime example. The reflective glass, you can see right through. They think it's a tree to land on, and splat. Unfortunately, that's so you don't even see that every time they hit a window. Sometimes they hit the window and there's no mark at all. But this one shows it clearly that a bird struck it. Unfortunately. So you're probably wondering, why didn't that bird just go around the house? Well, they didn't think they had to. They thought they were taking a shortcut right through. It didn't matter to them. So wherever glass and birds occur together, birds can die. There's simply no season. There's no place. There's no season for it. This can happen any time of year. A lot of people think it just happens during migration season in the fall and the spring, but that's just because you see it more on the news, because there's bigger die-offs. There's simply no place that birds are safe near glass. Most collisions are reported during migration, like I said, in urban areas. It's because when they die, hundreds die at once in full view of people. Most of the bird window collisions that you hear about in large cities are along migratory corridors, and it can be stunning, with hundreds of dead and dying birds at individual buildings. These mass mortality events draw much attention and are the reason most people think this is the main location and timing of bird window collisions. It makes sense, but it's not. These events usually occur in bad weather when migrating birds are forced to fly lower than normal, placing them closer to these cities, where on a cloudy night, the reflective light can blind and confuse the birds, causing them to fly around aimlessly until they're exhausted, and then they flutter down to the street level. They don't know where they're at, and they get tired, and then they land. So there at dawn, they're faced with the glass canyons, confusing noise and activity of a city that they're not used to. So they fly right into the reflections of the sky, into the glass in front of the atriums, filled with trees and other inviting vegetation, such as Philadelphia, which you can see. There's incredible carnage. This is infrequent. Fortunately, this is infrequent. Doesn't happen often, but that's the time you do hear about it. But the real crisis is, at home. Research has shown it's the day-to-day collisions that occur year-round at residential and low-rise commercial buildings that account for the majority of bird window collisions annually. So like I said, you see this in the city and you think that's the main cause of it because of migration. It doesn't happen often, but that's wrong. This often happens at homes with good habitat and feeders offering food and shelter. There's one bird enthusiast that reported recording an average of 100 strikes annually on one bay window facing their feeders. That's a problem, especially because you're trying to help them, but you're clearly not. You're injuring hundreds. So the key point here is, lights out and similar projects are very important and valuable in these big cities, and we don't want to take away from that. But we are concentrating on an often overlooked area of bird window collisions, where in fact most collisions occur annually, and that's at our houses and local businesses. It's the sheer number of windows in our homes, in our schools, and our corporate campuses that cause the greatest number of bird deaths. So that being said, the more birds attracted to close proximity with glass windows, the more likely bird window collisions will occur. It's simple logic. So 1,311 of the species worldwide have been documented to die colliding with glass, and over 290 species of North American species have met the same fate. The list of species colliding with glass continues to grow as we make contact in new areas. Like I said, not many people have researched this, but there are new and rising efforts such as Bird Safe Philly, which we'll talk about soon, to actually keep track of this and where it's happening, and a really community science-based effort to track this. But basically, any species that occurs near unprotected glass will eventually be on that list. It's sad, but glass kills. But there is something you can do about it. So it's not all doom and gloom, and Lynnette has the happier end of this presentation. She's going to talk about solutions and things that you can do at home. So Lynnette, take it away.
All right. So most unfortunately, that's the bad news, and it's bad, but we actually can do something to reduce all this carnage, and hopefully get rid of some misconceptions about what actually works. So next slide. Birds simply don't understand, recognize, or see glass. But there's two ways we can protect them. One is to put up a safe physical barrier in front of the glass, such as seen here. So there's netting that's hanging in front of the glass. So if the birds would hit it, they would bounce off and not actually hit the glass. The other possibility, number two, next slide, is to make the glass visible to the birds. And there's lots of ways to do this, and we'll talk about them, but no matter how you do it, you have to follow what's called the 2x4 rule. So if you're doing something horizontally, you must put those items, the etching, whatever you're going to put on the glass, has to be no more than 2 inches apart. Otherwise, the birds will think they can fly between it because they're used to dodging in and out between close branches and other things. And if you're going to put it vertically, then it can be as much as 4 inches apart, but no more. So again, everything you do must follow the 2x4 rule. Right, next slide. So one of the things you can do following this 2x4 rule is what are called Acopian bird savers, which is basically parachute cord, which you can buy at any of the box stores. So it's just 1/8 inch cord that you hang down no more than, again, 4 inches apart. And you can see there on the left side, you see what it looks like on the outside. And on the right side, you can see what it looks like from the inside. There's actually a number of DIY, do-it-yourself projects online that give you instructions on how to do this, or you could also buy it. So that's one method of making making the window visible. No matter what you do, though, you need to put it, next slide, you need to put it on what's called surface one. So in other words, the outside surface of the window. That's the surface that the birds would come in contact with. And so that's very important. So you can either hang those the Acopian string savers on there, or whatever you're going to do. Again, it needs to be on that outside or surface one of the glass. Next slide. One of the things you can do, again, is called kaleidoscape. And here you see that it's a nice pattern of flowers, and this is what it looks like from the outside. This is also called perforated vinyl, and most sign shops actually carry that. You put it on that outside surface, you have this nice picture, but from the inside, you can see out. This is what's actually often done on buses as well. So if you've ever been in a bus and it looks like all the windows are covered up and you get in the bus, you can see out. And so that's pretty cool. And again, you can make it any surface or color you want. Here's an example of it at Hawk Mountain. So the door on the left is what it looks like from the outside. Again, it looks like it's a solid surface, so birds aren't going to fly through that. But the picture on the right shows that you can still see out. So it's not actually a solid surface. It's got little holes perforated all over in it. And then the way that the shading and the coloring on it are done lets us see out and see through it. So best of both worlds. Again, you can use stickers on a window, but you've got to remember the 2x4 rule. There's a misconception that, oh, if it's a silhouette of a raptor, birds are going to be scared and aren't going to come near it. Not true. So again, it has to be the 2x4 rule. No matter what you put on that window, it's got to be no more than 2 inches apart. Kaleidoscape also offers a clear version that the birds can see, but yet we can still see out of it. Again, you can go on their website to get an idea. The American Bird Conservancy also has what's called ABC tape or bird tape, which I actually helped Pennypack Trust apply to one of their windows that was getting a lot of bird strikes, and that the number of strikes have now gone down dramatically. And again, it just comes in a roll, comes with a little measuring tape with it, and you can apply it in any pattern you want. Again, make sure you follow the 2x4 rule. Next slide. There's also what's called feather friendly, which you can, again, either order online, or I know wild bird stores carry it. And again, you can put it on yourself. It's just little dots. There on the left, you see what it looks like from the outside to the birds. And there on the right, you see what it looks like to you. So again, another easy do-it-yourself project. Next slide. Or you can paint on the windows. Again, this has to be on the outside surface one, so on the outside of the window. You can use tempera paint if you want it to come off more easily. And again, you can do any pattern you want. I myself, on the next slide, use acrylic paint, so I don't know how easily this will come off, but I did have a window that was getting some bird strikes and I couldn't stand that. And so I tilted the window in, painted that outside surface. And now when I look out my window, I see nice flowers. All right, next slide. You can keep blinds down, but that only works when it's the birds can see through the window enough to see the blinds. If you're getting a lot of reflection, then it's not going to work. The birds are still going to see the reflection, not see the blinds, and still hit the window. So putting the blinds down is better than nothing, but definitely not the best way to go. Next slide. So there's actually a lot of resources out there, and we'll give you some websites at the end of this program, including, of course, Audubon's. And if you go on their website, you can actually find a brochure that you could print and give to other people. So you can help spread the word. Next slide. So just what is bird friendly and who is deciding whether it is or isn't? And actually kind of no one in a way officially. So there is no official standard for ranking or testing products claiming to be bird friendly. There are a lot of products being marketed out there. They're saying how great they are, and some of them are actually worse than doing nothing. So a lot of them, again, are saying that if it's a certain shape, then just one decal or whatever will do, and that's just not true. So you need to go to a reliable site to make sure that the things are really work. Next slide. So something in this case, again, there's that misconception that putting a Raptor silhouette on something is going to protect birds, that they're going to be scared and not go near it. But, you know, birds aren't really used to seeing a Raptor like that, and it just really, it doesn't work. So again, you'd have to follow the 2x4 rule. So next slide. So again, 2 inches if it's horizontally, you can go 4 inches if it's vertical. In general, nothing larger than your handprint. So if you're like me, you have bird feeders, a lot of bird feeders, and where you put them is important. And it seems kind of counterintuitive, but the closer to the windows that you have them, the less lethal they are. And that's basically because as the birds leave the feeder, if they're close to that window, they haven't had time to build up enough speed to have a lethal collision. If they're a little bit further away, and the next slide shows, it actually increases the death rate. So this is an experiment that was done, and the furthest away they went was 10 meters, which is a little bit more than 30 feet. And as they went further away from the feeder, the death rate increased. And some people have taken this to assume that if they go more than 30 feet, that's safe. That's not really what this showed. That's just as far as they went out. If they'd gone out to 40 feet, it might have increased even more. That data is just not available. But we do know that if you're going to put your feeders a little away from the house, you better have all your windows marked on surface one. Next slide. So there is some promising stuff on the horizon, and one of them is UV. Birds can actually see in the ultraviolet range. Obviously, we cannot, but birds can. And so some products are being developed that use UV, such as, next slide, such as this. So they can either absorb UV or reflect UV. If it absorbs UV, then that leaves a pattern in the window that the birds can see because they're not seeing UV everywhere. If it reflects UV, same thing. And again, we can't see that at all. So it's invisible to us, but not to the birds. So far, there's not a lot of this available. Walker, next slide. Walker glass is one of them. And so again, birds can see the UV and we can't very well at all. Right? So again, beware of products claiming how fantastic they are. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So you need to, again, do your homework, check on reliable sites such as Audubon, maybe Penn State Extension, American Bird Conservancy. Cornell lab of ornithology, any of those would be good sources. Make sure they've actually been field tested. And again, anything you use, go ahead, has got to follow that 2x4 rule. It just is an absolute must. So no matter what you've heard from other places, you've got to follow the 2x4 rule. Next slide. So again, industry is beginning to pay attention and growing demand for solutions that are friendly, that are bird friendly. And next slide. So fritted glass is one example where it's actually when the glass is manufactured, it goes through a process that leaves little grooves in it that the birds can see. Here in Upper Moreland, the Asplin Cancer Center had a really big, large window, and they wanted to have it look out on a garden, and they knew that would not be good for birds. And so they actually put up fritted glass so we can still see out of it. The birds can actually see the glass, and it's actually, going to save thousands of bird lives for sure. Again, no matter what you do to the glass, it's got to be that 2x4 rule. All right, next slide. So acid etched glass is another example, and it would be difficult to do it on glass you already have, but you can. You can actually get glass etching material at the craft stores, and I've actually etched designs on glass with it. It's permanent. You can't ever take it off because it uses actually an acid that etches the glass and makes it permanent. Or you can also, again, if you're doing new construction or replacing windows, you can get the etched glass. Next slide. Next slide, yeah. So again, there's lots of choices out there. You can have lots of fun with it. You can be really creative and protect birds from your windows. So hopefully by now you realize just how important this is. Maybe during the day, you're in the house, you hear a noise, you don't know what that was. You go, you look, you don't see anything. Odds are high it was actually a bird hitting one of your windows, and you just didn't realize that's what it was. And again, you probably won't see the bird. If it was a lethal collision, it probably didn't just drop down. It might have, and if you heard it right away, you might potentially see the bird. But again, most of the time it's going to be fatal, but it's going to be able to fly away and die later. So I think most of us here have some ideas of why birds matter. Obviously, they're beautiful. They're amazing. They have amazing songs. They have amazing colors. They're just an amazing little creature. And if anybody's ever held a bird, it's just, it's just something you can't replace with anything else. But birds also are very, very important ecologically. People don't realize it, but some of them are actually very important pollinators, and that's very important for a lot of our food crops. Also, they control insects. All birds, virtually all birds, use insects to raise their young. So even seed-eating adults feed insects to their young. And so they're really good at controlling a lot of insects and cutting down our insect populations. Without birds, we would be overrun by a lot of pest insects. They also are good at some rodent control. Some of the larger birds eat a lot of rodents. And so it's very important. Again, we would be overrun with a lot of rodents. Birds are also really good at dispersing seeds. So birds that eat berries, for example, eat those berries, yum, yum, and then go somewhere else, poop out the seeds in a nice little pile of fertilizer. So really good at disseminating seeds and dispersing plants. Of course, some birds are for food for humans. So anybody that goes hunting knows that, duck hunting, for example, duck tastes pretty good. So without birds, we really wouldn't be here like we are right now. They're very important in food chains, both as food and as parts of the food chain, and ecosystems depend on them very greatly. Next slide. So there's actually over 300 species of birds just here in Southeast Pennsylvania. And so we really need to do all that we can to protect them. And again, we tend to think of our homes as not being a major problem for birds, but it turns out that they are. There's probably not any house on the planet that hasn't had at least one bird strike. And so we really need to help them out and do something today. It's going to be nice out today, good day to get out and start doing something on the surface of those windows. So hope you enjoyed the presentation today. Again, okay. One of the things you can do besides you're protecting your windows is also be a pain in the neck. So New York City I understand that this actually has passed now. New York City did do an amendment to their building code that had to be bird friendly. I'm on the Upper Moreland Township Environmental Advisory Council, and I pay attention when any new buildings are being approved, that I try and make sure they put in something in there about protecting the birds. We need to pass the Federal Bird Safe Building Act. So that's where you can bother your representatives and your senators at the federal level, and even at the state level, at the township level, any level where we can start getting this to be, again, more aware, and then also making it something that especially new construction needs to think of. So here are some websites that you can go to. And since this was recorded, I'm not quite sure how long it will be before it gets on the YouTube page, that these will be there, or you can snap a picture with them with your phone, or you can quickly write them down. So we'll leave this slide up a bit. So again, we appreciate you being here today and hope that you'll go do something this afternoon. Kevin?
Oh, is everyone still looking at that? I can share that again, one sec. Aha, there it is again. I saw some people still looking down writing, so.
Yeah.
And if anyone does need any of these, they can just email me. Everyone should have my email address from this morning. With all that being said, the presentation's over, and if you want to turn your video back on, feel free to do so. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anyone does have any chat questions, please either raise your hand like that or just shoot it into the chat box. If not, I think we'll just hang around for a couple more minutes, see if anyone has discussion or anything to talk about. But thank you, Lynnette. That was a happier end to my sad beginning.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone at least learned one thing, and if it's that how serious this problem is and that we can do something about it, great. That was the point of the presentation. Or if one person here at least keeps their cat inside instead of letting them outside, that's another win. But I think we're all like-minded folks, and I think we already do that. But like Lynnette said, there's so many little simple things that don't cost too much that can, bird kill proof your house. Hopefully your houses already have bird feeders and things like that. It sounds like a lot of you do. But these are just the little things that we can all do better. And then there's the big things, as Lynnette was saying, and go bother your township, because that's really where you make the difference. Go tell your township you care about this, and they have to listen. And we'll work with your environmental advisory council. Upper Moreland has one, and so does Abington. I'm not sure where everybody's from, but they have active EACs that can work with you to help do better in our townships. Like I said, there's also the other resources to help you guys do this at home. A quick Google search, or reach out to either Lynnette or myself or Lee Altadonna. We're all happy to talk about this. I also encourage you to look up Bird Safe Philly, which is a new community science project to actually track where this is happening and how often. As we said before, this is still a new thing that's being studied. So Bird Safe Philly is an attempt to get local schools and universities and just regular people in the community to track where this is happening. So if there's a bird collision at your house, you just go into iNaturalist, which is another phone app or a website that you can use, and you can report the bird window collision at your house or wherever you see it. This way we get a more accurate data of where, why, and how this is happening. So thank you, everyone. I don't see any questions coming in, do I? No, just a lot of thank yous. So thank you guys for joining us. We're happy to have you. I will be putting this on our YouTube as soon as Zoom sends it to me, which sometimes takes a day or two. Yeah, with no questions, I just want to say thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being members of the Pennypack Trust or Wyncote Audubon Society, and being like-minded folks with this caring for birds. So one more time, thank you guys, and we'll see you at the next program. Thanks,
Take
Lynnette.
care.
Thank you, everyone.